As we approach the final day of the debate on this resolution, I have enjoyed the debate thoroughly. I have found it humorous at times. Our friends on the other side have tried every argument they could possibly muster. They've talked about President Clinton. They've talked about Vietnam. They're trying to bring up Israel. And my friend from Indiana also mentioned the issue of consistency. And I find it funny that the pro-life, self-proclaimed pro-life party is the party that wants to keep extending the war. I find it ironic that all of the great budget hawks in the Republican Party want to throw $8 billion a month to keep going and going and going as we borrow the money from China. But I've also found the debate at times disappointing, where members of the other side have questioned our side, and they've said, you know, whose side are we on? And how can we say that we support the troops and that we're somehow unpatriotic? And I would just like to say that, you know, when the Republican Party and this president didn't send enough troops, we didn't call you unpatriotic. And when you sent our young soldiers over there without the body armor, we never called you unpatriotic. I will not yield. House is not in order.
No one that is so called you unpatriotic.
I will call this House to order. I will remind the the chair.
You can't make it up, Mr. Speaker. You can't make it up.
The House is not in order, Mr. Speaker.
Members will suspend. The gentleman from Ohio has the time. The chair will remind the members that it's proper to address the chair when speaking in debate. Gentleman from Ohio has the time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We never called the other side unpatriotic when they sent our soldiers over without enough body armor. And when they didn't send enough up-armored Humvees, we never called anybody unpatriotic. And now when the next batch goes over without the proper jammers or up-armored kits, we don't call you unpatriotic. Now, we've called you incompetent. We said you're incapable. And we've said you're derelict of your oversight responsibility, but never, Mr. Speaker, have we called anyone in this House unpatriotic. Now, let me
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
The gentleman from Ohio yield for the parliamentary inquiry.
I don't yield.
The gentleman may continue.
Now, let me speak to the resolution. This is very simple. It says two things. We support our troops, and we do not support the escalation. It's very simple, and here's why. We have already done this, Mr. Speaker. We've already done this. We've already tried the escalation, and it has not worked. From November to January of 2005, we escalated by 18,000 troops, boots on the ground, and the number of daily attacks increased by 17%. From June to October of 2005, we increased by 21,000 boots on the ground, and the number of daily attacks increased by 29%. And from May to November of 2006, 17,000 more boots on the ground, and the number of daily attacks increased by 80%. This escalation has not worked, and it will not work. The number of insurgents have increased from 5,000 in 2003 to between 20,000 and 30,000 to October of 2006. So this is very simple. And I want to make just a few more points, Mr. Speaker. One is this. With the last vote for the war, regardless of what party you're in or how you voted, we assumed that the President and the Secretary of Defense would send our troops over there with the proper equipment. But with this escalation, Mr. Speaker, we know that the 21,500 troops that are going to go over there will not have the proper Humvee kits, the up armor for their Humvees. They won't have the proper jamming devices or enough of them, and they won't have the number of trucks that they need. Period. Dot. You now know it. So if you vote against this resolution, you're voting to send our troops over there without the proper equipment. Before it could be excused, because we trusted the President and assumed, but now we know. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we've heard a lot over the last couple days about the American Revolution and the Civil War and World War II. Well, Mr. Speaker, our president today is not Washington, he is not Lincoln, and he's not Roosevelt. And so I think our Republican colleagues should take the advice of the Secretary of Defense, and that's you go to war with the president you have. You don't go to war with the president you wish you had. I yield back the balance of my time.
Chair thanks the gentleman. The chair reminds the members that they should address their remarks in debate to the chair and not to others in the second person.
I just want to, Mr. Speaker, it is entirely possible and welcomed under the Constitution of the United States to have disagreements about how we need to handle troop deployments, how we need to handle our situation in different wars. And it's not to be said that because one party or one group of people have a different philosophy and a different strategy that somehow they're not supporting the troops. Now, that your party and your president, that the Republican Party, Mr. Speaker, and the Republican president are the ones who sent our kids to battle without armor, without body armor. And it took Jack Murtha months to uncover it and then to finally get it paid for and distributed. It was the Republican Party, Mr. Speaker, who sent kids into battle without up-armored Humvees. Now, nobody questioned the Republican Party's patriotism. And nobody asked them if they supported the troops. Again, we called you incompetent. We said you were incapable. We said you were derelict of your duty. We said you should have provided oversight, and you didn't. But we never called you unpatriotic. Now, enough of the unpatriotic business. I yield back the balance of my time.